All right, hi guys. We are going to go over creating bar and line graphs. This is something that we're going over in class, but I am putting up a recording so that you can always go back to it and look at it, whether you're studying for your quizzes or your exams. It's just a resource for you all to have on deck. All right, so we're gonna start off with creating bar graphs and then we'll do line graphs. First off, some items that you want to make sure that you have when creating charts. Well-formatted charts are really good, and whether you're putting that in an assignment, a paper, a presentation, a poster, etc., clean charts are best charts, and they capture your audience's attention a lot better. So a couple things that you definitely want to have when creating charts are data labels, chart titles, axis lines. Try to have black font across. Try to stick to simple fonts such as Arial or Times New Roman font. Make sure that your percentages go from 0 to 100% if you're using percentages. And wherever 0 makes sense, sometimes 0 does not make sense in that specific graph or 0 is irrelevant. We discussed that with interval and ratio variables. So if the 0 makes sense and 0 has a value in that data set, make sure that your vertical axis starts with 0. So in psychology, a lot of our data collections occur via feedback forms or surveys, self-reports from participants, right? So here's just an example. For example, in a survey you could have during data collection, the following sessions allowed me to be aware of my children's actions during play. And you would have the caregiver or parent answer from a Likert scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree. So let's see how that looks when we create it into a bar chart. So first you're going to go ahead and select your data. You're going to go into insert. This little column chart option right here, you're going to click on that down arrow. And it's going to bring you a list of options. We're going to go ahead and pick a simple 2D clustered column bar chart. So I'm just going to expand it a little bit. All right. So immediately you can see that it's not the best chart, but it is pretty clean. But we just need to make a couple of adjustments. So first off, let's go ahead and add a chart title. You can name this whatever you would truly like, but it has to be representative of the data that you're working on. So perhaps this one can be named Actions of Children During Play, or Awareness rather. Awareness of Actions of Children During Play. And then we want to make sure that we have titles for our axis bars as well. When the axis goes up and down, that's your vertical axis. When it goes left to right, that's considered your horizontal axis. So we want to have a title for both. So there's a plus sign next to your chart. It's called chart element sign. We're going to go ahead and click that, and you'll see that there's a list of chart elements you could choose from. We want to go to the arrow that says axis titles, and you want to select primary horizontal and primary vertical. So for your primary vertical axis title, we could say agreement percent. And for your horizontal title, we can say agreement level, right? So this would be an agreement level of strongly disagree to strongly agree. And then the percentage here rates what percent they actually chose. The other thing here is that you can see that all these lines here that are gray, right? It doesn't really separate between the vertical and the horizontal axis. So we want to make that a little bit more clear for our audience to understand. So I want you to go ahead and click on your vertical axis. If you just click on like the percentage area, it should highlight a box around this part. If you go to this area, first off, we notice that it doesn't go off to 100%. It does start at 0%, which is great, but it doesn't go off to 100%, so we want to fix that. In this bar option, under axis options, we see a part that's called bound, and you have a minimum of 0.0, which means that our bar is going to start at 0%, and our maximum of 0.7, which means that the percentage is going to end at 70%. We want it to end at 100%, so you want to change this 0.7 into 1.0. Okay, and then hit enter, and your chart should go now from 0 to 100%. The next thing is that we want to add some axis lines. So there's a paint bucket here, and it's called the fill in line option. You want to click that. And under the line option, select solid line and change that and make sure that it's a black color. And now you can see that there is a dark line differentiating between this axis and the grid lines here. You want to do the same thing for your horizontal axis, so click over here, go back to your paint bucket, your line, your solid line, and just make sure that it's black. Great, so now you can see that it's differentiated, right, between these middle lines that are your grid lines. All right, so one last thing that you want to look at, which is a major thing, is you want to double click on your bars. And when you click on them, you'll see that each of them has a little bit of an outline of a bar. It means that it's selected. If I look at the strongly disagree bar here, I would want to guess that maybe it's at like 7%, 8%. If I look at the neutral one, sure, it's on this grid line, so I can say, oh, it's 10%. But for the rest of the bars, it's a little bit hard to estimate. So you want audiences to have a real good feel for what these numbers represent. So go back to your chart elements, click on data labels, and now it gives you the percentage, the actual percentage, so that the audience does not need to guess what each bar represents. All right, so this is a simple bar chart. This is what I expect when we're doing quizzes, assignments, and exams. And so something very neat and clean like this, and just make sure that you have these additional elements when you're creating your bar charts.